Welcome everybody. So, welcome to this session. So we'll be starting this session in 4 minutes if you're watching this on a replay. If you don't know what session you're showing up to, I can tell you it's a session with Mark, and it wasn't that bad. How trauma impacts even normal people. So we're starting in 4 minutes. You've still got time to go get anything you need. You're allowed to eat during this session. You're allowed to be walking, you're allowed to be patting your dog, you're allowed to be doing most things. You can have your camera on. We like seeing you no matter what you're doing. Although, don't put your camera on if you're not wearing any clothes or something. They'll just have to turn it off, and then you might not be able to turn it on again, and it will just be awkward. So yeah, most things that are, PG rated, you're allowed to be doing. So if you feel like doing so, please do also rename yourself. I can see Tracy already has where you are in the world. So she's in Tennessee, USA. So I'd like to go to Tennessee one day. I kind of am a closet country music fan. I find it's got an interesting embodiment. And so I'd love to go there at some point. But not so easy at the moment with all this. There's apparently some pandemic going on. So yeah. And I imagine we've got mostly North Americans here. Maybe some guys still in the UK and in Europe. And time zones. New Zealand, there might be a couple Kiwis, who knows, or someone in Far East Asia, if they're in early bird, or Australia. It's Australia at the moment, 6 a.m. on the East Coast. So probably not, unless they're really keen. And how many sessions has everyone attended today? You can drop it in. Welcome, New Mexico. Nice. Drop in how many sessions you've attended today. So as a little pre-warning, Mark did 4 sessions already today, so he pre-recorded this session. So, because we're telling people don't do too many live sessions, otherwise that's actually not going to be very good for you. This is around self-care as well as trauma. So we recommend probably don't do more than 4 live sessions. So Tracy, pushing it. Tammy, you're okay so far, There'll be some replays. They'll be sent out from tomorrow, and they'll be available until I think it's 21st to the 22nd or something. So no stress on that. Yeah, do take care of yourselves as well. You can also listen to this session if you're just outside walking or something. It's mainly just going to be a talk. It won't be practical stuff, so you don't need to be doing things or whatever. We'll get started in just over a minute. Does anyone here, here's a different one, has anyone here invited a friend or a family member? If you have, you get extra points. I don't know who the points are from, but you can imagine you've got a trophy or something for it. Some cool stuff coming up after this as well. This year's is next, and we've got some other sessions tonight as well. A spiritual bypass one at 1 a.m. UK time, which makes 8 p.m. Eastern. That one's a lot of fun. And we've got Christina, who's really awesome, coming up at 10 p.m. Eastern time, which is 7 p.m. Pacific time. All right. Let's get ready to get this session started. Welcome back, everyone, for this session. So as I just mentioned, this session is on it wasn't that bad. So how trauma impacts even normal people. This is being done by Mark. So in case you don't know who Mark is, Mr. Embodiment. So he's worked in 5 war zones. He's worked with street kids, the Russian LGBTQ+ community, and with police, aid workers, 3 militaries, and has been sober for 14 years. He was traumatized, but now he does okay. So this session is, if you're here live, then that means you've got an all access pass. So if you want to, you can turn your cameras on. I'm losing my voice today. Even if you're like walking your dog or cooking or anything else that you can think of. Although Mark's not actually here live for this session, he's taken our advice and doing his own self-care. So we pre-recorded this one because he'd already done like 4 sessions today. If you have been here for many sessions, if you're binge watching, feel free to take it off as well. You'll get replays. Don't stress about that. If you are watching replay and you want to watch even more sessions, you can get the all access pass because you'll have access to all the replays and some live Q&As as well, either with Patricia or with Roger Mills. So first thing, share this with as many people as you can. Like, we want everyone to benefit. It's a free event for up to 3 sessions, and we've tried to do sessions that appeal to everyone, whether it's about like anger or anxiety or dealing with grief and sadness and forgiveness or arrogance or anything like that. We try to do something across the board. So generally, you won't actually want to watch every session because they're all for specific niches. And so 3 sessions might actually be enough for the whole event. So if there's anyone who fits into one of those categories that you know, do share it with them. I'll post a link down there in the chat. And just before starting as well, I should mention that there is actually a course that you can do after this if you want to delve a bit deeper into it. So there's like a course on healing from Ilan that's using shaking and combining a few different trauma methods. And then there's also the superpowers course with facilitators, where if you've healed your trauma and you want to become exceptional on top of that, you can also check that out. But no hard sells or anything like that. If it's interesting to you, feel free to check it out. A few safety things as well. As I've said, don't binge watch sessions. And if right now you're not feeling overly resourced, I'd say maybe skip it and come back at another time. Like, this whole conference is about being kind to you and improving you. And if right now that kindness would be taking a break, then do that. If you need one-to-one therapy instead of just education, which is what this provides as well, there's no judgment because many of the teachers have actually been there, including Mark, as he'll talk about a bit. And if in the middle something triggers you, you tense up, you feel agitated, or you space out, move, breathe, do something that you know will resource you. It might just be pushing your feet onto the floor, or taking a few conscious breaths. It might be looking around the room and identifying objects you see that are like green or purple or yellow with black, pink polka dots. I don't know. And also, just to give you the Mark warning, he might do it here, but he takes his work seriously, but he doesn't take himself seriously. There'll be jokes, there'll be fun, all of this sort of stuff. There'll be a sense of humour. So if you're not used to laughing around this topic, be aware that there will be some jokes around this. And if you don't like that, you can leave now and check it out on the replay or something like that if you feel better resource later. So do resource before, during, and after this session. All right. With that said, I'll get this started. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
Session for people that don't think they've got anything too bad in their life, and we'll define that in a minute, but they're still a bit neurotic. Yeah, let's face it, we all are. I like to say we're all screwed up in different ways, and also to different degrees, let's be honest too. So in this session, we'll look at how you might identify where trauma could come from that might show up in kind of, we might say, low level. Yeah. Also, how your perception of what is and isn't a lot might be a bit distorted as well. It's another thing. So there's a few factors here. 480, safety stuff, normal stuff. If you've been watching more of these recordings, do not binge watch hundreds of them. Okay, it's not Friends. Okay, it's not a good idea. So equally, you know, these are really designed for people like, particularly this session. If you're like deep in PTSD and you absolutely can't function in life, might be better off served by one-to-one therapy rather than a course like this. This is for people who are either healed a lot or they've kind of only had a little bit of trauma. I take the point of view we've all had at least some, but there is a spectrum. There's a huge spectrum. Yeah, and there's lots of other good stuff out there for people who've had the severe trauma. What else? Safety point of view, keep breathing, keep moving. If you find yourself, you know, encourage people to walk and to listen to these with friends, to move while you do so. It's not school. You can be outside in nature, listening to them. It's mostly going to be like talk. So you don't have to, you know, watch the screen if you're a bit zoomed out. Yeah, if you find yourself getting a bit like it's a bit overwhelmed, particularly as well, you know, you stop breathing, you know, stand up, have a shake, have a move. Or just take a break from the recordings. You know, if you're watching the recordings, press pause. You have to watch it all now. Yeah. Cool. Equally, there may be swearing, there may be jokes. If you are easily offended, please go back to the safe place in Portland that spawned you. Okay, we're not doing that today. This is a place for robust grown-ups, I'm afraid. Yeah. So what else? What else? I think they're the main safety things. Daniela, did I hit all the checklist again? I always find it hard to hit all the checklist. You doing okay right now? That's, I guess the last one is just like, are you okay right now? Right? You resourced enough to hear a fast-paced talk on trauma. You know, now might not be the time. Bear that in mind. Be kind to yourselves. Please be kind. Okay, so when I first heard the word trauma, I kind of had a sense of what it might mean. And I knew I'd seen like Vietnam vets on the TV who had flashbacks, and I'd seen my granddad who couldn't sleep at night. And I think I even got a bit of what Gabor would talk about, you know, people with addictions, maybe kind of self-medicating. I didn't have the words then, but I kind of got a sense of that, you know. And I thought, well, that's not me, because I wasn't sexually abused. And at that point, I hadn't been in a war zone. Okay. And I thought, you know, that can't be me. And even though my mentor, Paul Linden, worked with abused children, I remember thinking, oh, that's, you know, I'm not really interested in that. I do like leadership and stress, but I'm not really interested in that. And I really kept away from it. You know, I didn't even read my own teacher's book on the topic. Yeah. And I think I didn't want to say I'm traumatized. I didn't want to say. Why did I not want to say? One, because people have had it worse than me. A lot of people in the world have had it worse. And some of those people are my friends. And I didn't want to use a term like trauma when I went, well, if I'm traumatized, what about my friend? I don't know, I'll make up her name. It's not my name, but Sarah, who was like, you know, molested really badly as a kid, you know, every night for years. Yeah. Like if I'm traumatized, what do we call her? That's not fair on her. Yeah. Because clearly my life was difficult at times, and it wasn't like that. Yeah. So I felt like that somehow would dishonor her, but also I felt like it would be like stigmatizing for me to say I was traumatized. You know, like I don't want to say it. It's like, to me, it sounded like broken. That's what it sounded like. Yeah, it sounded like screwed up. Yeah, now I make jokes about that, but at the time that was like, no, working class British bloke. There's no way I was gonna, you know. I remember my mum saying, "Do you want to see a therapist?" And I was like suicidal and 15. I was like, "No way!" She's like, "You're literally thinking about killing yourself." I found, you know, things that would suggest that, and like even then, I was like, "No way would I see a therapist." So it's hard for me to remember that now because the world I'm in now, where it's quite normal to have a therapist, but growing up, that was like, no way. Partly culturalist as well. I mean, in America, it can be a bit more acceptable. So for those reasons, I was like, no way. And also what I was seeing later on as a coach and a psychologist was that many of my clients who didn't have abuse backgrounds or hadn't been in the war zone still had symptoms, inverted commas, that I would call trauma. They still had things going on that looked like trauma. Even if they were at a lower level, they were less severe, there was not enough of them to have a PTSD diagnosis, but they still had stuff going on. I guess the conclusion I came to recently is that there's a scale. Yeah, there's a spectrum. And trauma is simply an overwhelming event. And we all have those. We all have those overwhelming events. Like, think of your teenage years. Who didn't have something overwhelming just from puberty happen to them? Okay, I gave the example the other day of like having an erection in class, then having to stand up when the bell went and going, oh my God, everyone's going to see it. And again, well, yeah, you're laughing now. When I was 12, I was definitely not laughing. That was an overwhelming experience. Yeah. Or a friend of mine telling me how he realized he was gay, and just realizing that was overwhelming. He didn't have to be bullied or attacked or anything. Just realizing he was gay. It was like, oh, this is not allowed, and I'm a dirty person. This is bad. Right? You see so much trauma in the gay community, and some of it's just from that first realization. Before anything bad happens, like they get beaten up or attacked or anything. Yeah. On top of that, of course, I'm working with the gay community in Russia in the near future. So there's worse things happen, but it's like there's still trauma from that initial realization. I think also as a child, right? A friend of mine's just had a new baby. And he said to me, why is my son acting up so badly? Because he's got a 5-year-old that's, you know, really behaving badly, like really naughty. And I said, well, he feels threatened by the baby. That's pretty normal sibling thing, right? Sibling rivalry. And he said, yeah, but I'm still feeding him. I'm still loving him. He said, yeah, but you're just putting a lot more love and attention on the baby. And he can see and feel that right now. And that's existentially threatening to him as a 5-year-old. So as a 5-year-old, he can't say, you know what, they've had a baby. Of course, they're busy. Of course, they're smitten right now, but they still love me, and it's not really any problem here, because that's too logical. As a 5-year-old, it's a threat that the caregivers are paying more attention to the new baby. He's got no context for that at 5. He's got no resources for dealing with it. There's things like Daniela's a black belt. Okay, if a drunk guy tried to attack Daniela, it would be something like light entertainment for her. Okay, because of the resources she has as an ex-policewoman and as black belt. Yeah, but if a drunk guy were to attack half of you, you might find it overwhelming because you don't have the resources, you don't have the skills, right? You don't have the experience Daniela has in Afghanistan, the police, and everything else. Yeah, so the same for a kid. The kid doesn't have the experience, the resources. Yeah, it's like, do you remember that first rejection of first love when you were 15 or 16? I do. Right now, if a girl didn't like me, I split up with a girlfriend, it'd be sad, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. When you're 16, it's crushing. Okay? She doesn't love me. Okay, because you don't have a context, you don't have the resources. So things can still be overwhelming and leave a mark. Okay? Not a mark, but leave a pattern. Yeah? So that's all trauma is. It's a pattern from the past, which came as a coping mechanism at the time. It was a way of establishing safety. It was a way of feeling safe again. It was a way of not feeling the overwhelm. Okay, so some pattern from the past that now plays out in the future. I mean, that's almost a definition of neurosis. It's almost a definition of just the neurosis, if you're not used to these terms, is like the normal ways we're all screwed up. As opposed to, say, a psychosis where you're completely not in touch with reality. Neurosis is like, I know this is weird and I know I'm overreacting, but can you not make that noise? Yeah? Or can you not, whatever it is, eat with your mouth open, leave your coffee cups around, be 5 minutes late. Oh, goodness me. I'll give you an example. That's from, for me, my childhood was quite chaotic, and I had a chaotic dad, but I had a very reliable mum. So I had an alcoholic chaotic dad, but I had a very reliable mum who always kept her promises and kept her words. And what that meant, she was always on time. That was like one of her things. She'd always do what she said. So if somebody isn't on time for me or they break their word about some small thing, I immediately put them in the box of chaotic person, as opposed to like, oh no, 5 minutes late, whatever. So it makes sense. So it does, and I'm not like so crazy. I don't like kill people if they're 10 minutes late, okay? But I do get a bit more annoyed than is necessary. So you bearing with me? So it's like a slight neurosis about time that I have. And that didn't come from some massive trauma. It just came from the pattern in my childhood. Yeah. So it's, and that's not an obvious one. It took me a while to work that out because I can justify it. Yeah, but you should be on time and my time is precious and you're making your time work. Yeah. I'm right. I'm still right. Okay. Don't worry. But I'm giving it that extra charge. So where there's that like value add 10% extra crazy free of charge, there could be a bit of trauma in the past. Make sense? So one way of identifying if there could be trauma is, where do you overreact? Okay. Where do you get a little bit more angry or not angry enough? Yeah. Where do you be a bit over boundaried or under boundaried? Where do you get a little bit reactive or out of control? Where do you damage your relationships when you go into that sympathetic arousal as opposed to rest, digest, and connect? So we all have those places. Cultures can have them. Some cultures are a bit neurotic about food. Okay, anyone from a foodie culture that has things going on, Ireland, Jewish traditions, Eastern Europe, it's quite a lot of the world, particularly countries that have had food scarcity. Yeah, you find it less, for example, in Scandinavia. Okay, so where there's been food scarcity, you might find the whole culture's a little bit like, eat your dinner. Yeah, it's not like my grandmother was like crazy about food, but she did make me eat my dinner, and that was not a choice. It was a little bit like, would it really matter if I left a little bit of food on the table? Yes, it would. There's children starving in Africa, Mark. How can you dare? How dare you leave food on the table? We didn't survive the famine, so you could leave a few mouthfuls of food on the plate. You're not watching any TV until you eat your dinner. Yeah, that's my Irish grandmother, who ironically was called Joy. All right. So actually, she's a very lovely woman, but she did have some Irish cultural trauma for sure. Yeah. Trauma can also show up in ways that are like, not necessarily, they don't look bad. Like, this is an Irish one as well, who is super friendly? really friendly, really nice, always making. Daniel's like, no, I'm not. That's not the German one. No, who is super friendly? Right, that could be a trauma pattern. It could just be you're a nice human being, but are you a bit too nice? Are you friendly when you shouldn't be? Yeah, you should learn from my wife. Okay, get a Ukrainian or a Russian partner if you want to learn from someone who isn't too friendly. So my wife doesn't like you. She just won't talk to you. She won't feel obliged to say please and thank you. Yeah. So even something like being friendly or making jokes all the time, that's a very common Irish one. Paul Linden tells me it's very Jewish too. That could be a trauma pattern. Yeah, little bits of trauma around. I'm safe by being friendly, or I'm safe by being the funny one, or I'm safe by being the clever one. Okay, anyone professionally clever? Who here has to be clever? There has to be the traumas. There has to be, right? Like, yes, I get paid for being clever. There's one. All the people that normally leave comments in the things telling me their opinions during a training. It's like, yes, yes, yes. We know you're clever. Stroke, stroke, reinforce. Okay, great. So good. That's how you stop the side chat, isn't it? It's your trauma pattern. Even like the same a trainer, right? People taking notes. Is that a trauma pattern? Well, it might just be they taking notes, right? But I've noticed in some countries there's this quality of like, gotta get it, gotta get all the learning. It's a scarcity pattern. You know, stuff around money. Who doesn't have stuff around money? We all do. People have, almost everyone has patterns around money. Could be being overly generous, could be a scarcity pattern again. Again, money, that's like safety for a lot of people, right? For some people, like money is freedom, money is safety. It's like there's not enough money if you grow up in a house with not enough money. Anyone grow up in a house with not enough? I did. I grew up pretty poor. I was always sort of had the sense in our house there wasn't really quite enough. Like we didn't get to go on holiday and stuff like that. And what that could have left me would be a pattern around scarcity. Yeah. Does that make sense? And it wouldn't necessarily be like PTSD, flashbacks, but just a little bit weird around money. Be a little tight. A little bit not generous to my staff or whatever it would be in a business context. Yeah, a little bit every penny trying to save. Okay. So we mentioned food, we mentioned money. Should probably talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. So sex again. Doesn't have to be you've got a massive sex addiction or you're completely unable to enjoy sex. It could just be a slight kink. Okay, might not be a problem even. It might be like, look, I'm just into this. What can I say? I'm into dolphins. It's my thing. Okay, you know, once I was traumatized by a dolphin. Now I try and get. I'm using a silly example, but many of us have some kind of a sexual pattern. You know, maybe it's how we self-regulate. I think I'm probably one of those. I use sex to kind of calm down that little bit of trauma arousal that I still have. And there's worse ways to do it, assuming there's boundaries and respect and consent and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So some of the behaviors we have may be soothing behaviors, or same sex, this also counts, enlivening behaviors. If we're a little bit numb, okay, how do we feel alive? Could be extreme sports, it could be extreme yoga, it could be sex, could be spicy food, so many ways, something that makes us feel alive. Now, it is possible to go, oh my God, everything's trauma. Key thing, is it having a negative impact on your life? If it's not, enjoy the dolphins, enjoy your spicy food, enjoy your extreme yoga, whatever. Okay, but if it's getting in the way of your health, if it's getting in the way of your relationships, your work, you don't have to settle for good enough. Yeah, so often the trauma traditions that I've been raising come from therapists. Most therapists are dealing with pretty broken people who are having a really difficult time. So they reach out to a therapist, you know, and they just want, like when I first started my trauma healing journey, I just wanted to sleep without alcohol. I just wanted to be able to have a normal girlfriend. I just wanted to, you know, not be a complete addict, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And it would have been enough for me to sort of just deal with those basic things, you know? So I get that. And if you're in that stage of the healing journey, I wish you well. Therapy, very, very helpful. Lots of good healing modalities. There is hope. You do not have to stay there forever. Like me and Daniela, you can make that journey and it is well worth it, even if it does cost a bit of time and money and effort. However, most people stop when they get to good enough. It's like, yeah, my relationship's okay. I'm an okay manager. You know, yes, I'm a little bit controlling, or yes, I'm a little bit harsh with my, you know, people. Yes, I'm a bit of a pushover sometimes, but it's okay. You know, it's fine. Why stop there? Why not be greedy for healing? Why not actually take the healing into the exceptional? You know, So it's not that you're identifying trauma patterns just because there's, oh, I have to make something wrong, and there can be this like slightly neurotic fixation of always having to find something wrong with yourself to work on your stuff, But I think a much more interesting, much more exciting proposition is how do I take it into the exceptional, the superpowers, the super enjoyable, the super competent, right? Like, it's like the first time I saw my Brazilian ex, Veronica, eat a piece of fruit. She ate a mango and the juice dribbled down her chin onto her. And she was she was groaning in pleasure. Okay. I've never seen someone enjoy eating so much. And I was there with my mum and I was sort of embarrassed, it's like, it's like British people, she was enjoying that mango more than most British girls enjoy an orgasm. I was like, what the hell's going on? Okay. And then I realized like, oh, you can enjoy food that much. I had no idea. You could really enjoy stuff. Or the first time I heard I have an Afro-Caribbean friend called Floyd and I heard him laugh and he was like, ho, ho, ho. And he really laughed. And I was like, oh, I'm a bit English for that. I've never heard someone laugh so freely. I'm chortling, but it's a bit too much. And I realized that he was just really laughing. All right. And I never really laughed. Okay. It's like, I roar like a lion when I have an orgasm now. Right. Like there's a rah. Yeah. It's like there's more pleasure possible. Also, there's more skill possible. Like, like as a manager, I'm kind of okay, right? I'm good enough. I'm not an amazing manager. I'm reasonable. I've done some projects that work, so I'm not total crap, but I could be a lot better. And I think if I continue on my trauma journey, I will be a lot better. I'll have to apologize a lot less. This is me as a manager on a weekly basis. Look, I'm really sorry. I overreacted. I was a bit impulsive. I shouldn't know. You're not fired. I shouldn't have said that. Listen, you did screw up, but it wasn't that bad. We can talk about it. I'm really sorry. That's me at least once a week. Okay. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but so now I'm still running a business, right? But my employees kind of have to tolerate my trauma patterns and they shouldn't really, should they? It's not really fair. I'm not like an awful abusive boss. I'm not screaming at people or whatever, but I'm just sometimes a bit aggressive, a little bit fiercer than I need to be. Does it make sense? And, that's what kept me safe as a kid when I had a difficult childhood. I'll be like, right, I'm going to be a warrior. Fuck all you guys. Yeah. But I'm not in a war anymore. Yeah. I'm not in a war zone. I'm not in an alcoholic house anymore. I'm in a business with normal people who don't need that shit. They don't need that shit. Yeah. Equally, places I have healed, like creativity. Trauma gets in the way of creativity. When you're in fight or flight, you don't have any new ideas. You just do the simplest, oldest, most established thing. Like one of the ways I've healed is I'm dramatic. Is this true, Daniela? I said some things that I'm not good at, so I'm going to blow my own trumpet in a very un-British way. I'm ridiculously creative, like absurd. My marketing team can't keep up with the ideas I have. Yeah, they're like, not another idea. Yeah. So, but that creativity, that's a superpower. Yeah, think about it. If you're in a dangerous place, you need solutions, right? You need solutions. So being able to quickly come up with solutions with that little bit of sympathetic arousal that's still hanging around, right? That gives you speed. Yeah. But there's enough ventral that you're actually able to, so I'm talking polyvagal, there's enough ventral you're able to be creative and imaginative. Yeah. That's a superpower. Yeah. Yeah. So we've got stuff on superpowers. We've got stuff on all these little issues that crop up. You don't have to have had an awful childhood. And, the other thing is people misperceive that. I remember going to my therapist and I literally said to my therapist, yeah, I had an alcoholic dad and yeah, I've been to a few war zones and I've seen some starving people, but, I don't think it was really serious enough to have any trauma really. And now I look back and my therapist was very patient to not go, are you fucking kidding? Right? Because clearly I had things going on, but I didn't want to admit it. And my perception was warped. Right? It's not that I have hyperarousal, it's that everyone else is slow and boring. It's not that I'm numb, it's that everyone else is oversensitive. Yeah. So our trauma patterns hide themselves. That's the genius of them. They're self-protective. Our trauma patterns stop us seeing them clearly. So you may have trauma patterns that are more serious than you think. I certainly did. Okay, because to us, it's like the taste of your own mouth. It's just normal. It's just normal. We don't know our trauma patterns till we step out of them. Like, I do this one with me where you cross your arms. You want to try this now? Francis got her arms crossed. So we'll go with this one. Try this, Polly. Cross your arms. Okay, then cross them the other way. Feels weird, right? Okay, so our trauma patterns, like the first one, they just feel normal. So we don't necessarily notice them. Usually other people will give us feedback, you know, and if 10 people tell you you're a duck, it's time to start admitting it and quacking, you know. I'm doing a live course here in Brighton at the moment, and people were giving each other feedback, and people were like, I'm not aggressive. What are you saying? I'm not argumentative. I'm very agreeable. And I was just like, okay, not quite ready for that bit of feedback just yet, but maybe one day. Yeah, so our trauma is numbing, which blinds us to feeling it. Yeah, you're not going to feel it from meditating. You're not going to become aware of your trauma meditating, unless part of your pattern is I can't sit still and it's completely awful to sit still. Then you might. You know, David Trevelyan does a thing on trauma sensitive mindfulness. We've got him on. Yeah, so you might be more traumatized than you think. And even if you're not that traumatized, even if you just got a little bit of screwed upness, why not get rid of that? Why not enjoy the mango? Right? Why not be the manager that is a totally a not jerk as opposed to just a jerk sometimes? You know, why not give, someone's got their child in the background, right? Glad you've got headphones on. Why not give her that little bit of trauma that you've still got from your grandparents? Why not? What a gift, right? It's like the gift you don't pass on. The family heirloom of trauma. Why not smash that son of a bitch, burn it once and for good, and not give it to your kids? Right? You're like, yeah, but I'm not as bad as my dad. I mean, he was a proper alcoholic. I'm just a bit of an alcoholic. Actually, there's a nice story. My dad got sober at 60. Isn't that lovely? Okay. I got sober at 27. Okay. My niece, she's probably traumatized from how she was born. She was born in a very difficult way. She had a lot of problems and almost died a few times. And she's got a lot of hyperarousal symptoms, which other people call ADHD and I call lots of fun. Okay. We run around together and have a good time. I don't have a problem with her. And she's probably going to develop some kind of drug or alcohol problem. I can fucking see it. She's got the genes. She's got the trauma. I see how she's around sweets. Okay, but I tell you what, hers will probably be healed. If mine healed at 28, my dad's healed at 60, she might only have it for a year or two, right? There's some healing going on. I'm going to be ready. I'm going to be there, okay? You know, like, touches me, but it's like things can get better, yeah? We don't have to tolerate over the generations, over our lives. You know, this stuff I tolerated in a relationship years ago that I would never tolerate now. You know what I mean? So I want it to be enjoyable. I want it to be deeply connected. You know, I want me and my wife to have more possibilities than my first girlfriend, who, God love her, was dealing with all my trauma and was just about hanging in there. You know, it's hopeful, huh? It's hopeful. So don't settle for good enough. Don't settle for, you know what, I'm just annoying everyone a bit, or I'm just a bit of a drug addict, or I'm just a bit of a bad boss, or just a little bit, you know, my sex life's okay, but you know, it's not great. Why not actually do the work, particularly as in the upper stages of trauma healing, the work gets fun. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. This is a little bit shocking if you're in like early stages of like hardcore trauma recovery, because that's often not that much fun. It's quite hard work and there's a lot of tears, right? But a lot of the time now, I was talking to Paul on the phone last night, Paul Linden. We talked for an hour. We spent most of that hour laughing, even though we were talking about our deeply personal trauma issues. Yeah, me and Patricia, same thing. She's another one of the people involved in this program. We mostly just gossip and geek out and talk about what boys she's dating, and it's say boys, she's, you know, in her 30s, but it's you know, it's just fun. It gets more enjoyable, yeah, because you're more resourced, right? More resourced. So dealing with that last 10% can be a lot easier than the first part, which was, you know, necessary but really harsh. I'm seeing several lols in the chat. That's always welcome. All right, good. So what have we covered? Everyone's traumatized to a degree because we all have overwhelming events. All right. No matter how good a mum Christina is, that little darling will unfortunately have some overwhelming events in her life. Okay. Some of which will leave a mark on her, will leave a negative influence in the future. Okay. And some of that will be little, just slightly difficult things. Other, it will be maybe more severe, you know, depending on how someone's life is. There is a scale. We shouldn't say there's an equivalence. Saying you have trauma isn't saying you're equivalent to someone that had, say, massive sexual abuse. It's not saying that. Yeah, I want to be really clear on that, both for their sake and for yours. Yeah, I think it's respectful to see that difference. Yeah, but it's also easier on people that have had massive abuse and stuff like that to see it as a scale because they don't feel like total freaks. They've had what everyone's had, just more. Yeah, just worse. So they're still in the same ballpark as the rest of us. It's a much nicer frame than you're broken or you're not. So we've all got something going on. By definition, it will negatively affect your life now because it will mean you're acting in a way that's over the top or too over or under the appropriate level. You'll be misperceiving. You're not really in the present moment when there's a trauma pattern being triggered. You're in the past. Like someone really had a go at me in this training yesterday. And I just went, whoa, who am I to you? And they burst into tears and they're like, you're my dad. Right? Because I'm the authority figure. I'm the lead trainer. I'm daddy. Yeah. As a trainer, you get this all the time. I didn't take it personally. I could immediately see it wasn't about me because I hadn't done anything to this person. I was actually out of the room all day. Yeah. And it was like, okay, who am I? You know, one of my therapist friends, when I'm acting out and I'll be doing a little thing, you know, a little Mark thing. And then she'll say, how old are you now, Mark? And I'll be like, 10, fuck you. Okay. Like we get stuck in the past. Yeah. And then I laugh and we get past it. And I realize that more grown up ways of behaving are possible. Yeah. So we all have these little things and we can deal with them. There are trauma modalities, you know, like Alan Stefani's shaking thing that we'll tell you about. There's lots of other good ones out there. David Baselli's a guest doing TRE. There's, you know, EMDR, which we're not selling in any way, that can be very good. There's loads of good modalities. Some of these are better suited for like, you know, less severe trauma. Yeah. And I also mentioned be open to the fact that you may have trauma that's a bit more severe than you think because trauma is distorting and it's self-defending. Yeah, normally it's self-defending in that way. Yeah, it's conservative. That's how I would call trauma. It says, no. The world is dangerous. You don't have any trauma. That's just how the world is. You're right. Yeah, or whatever the pattern is. Whew, cool. Anything I should have added, Daniela? I think we got the main ones. Do look after yourself if you're watching these recordings. There's loads of other great ones there. So check them out. And as ever, do share the link. Tell your friends if you're having a good time. As I said, at least 3 of the sessions are free for everyone. I think it's a massive contribution to the world that we get this stuff out there. I think it's extremely useful for people to know. And I think if people have this misunderstanding that only people who've had massively difficult childhoods are traumatized, that it's not great because there's a lot more people that could benefit from this work. A lot more people. Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much. We'll end the recording there.
So thank you, everyone. A few things just before you go away. If there's something you actually learned from that, please type it in the chat or write it down for yourself. I can pass on stuff to Mark. If there's something that you really went, wow, that's like bing, didn't realize that before. So do share it in the chat or write it for yourself so that you can take it away and actually benefit from that reframe or whatever it happened to be. Also, as Mark just said there, please do share this with friends, with family, with anyone who would benefit. Like there may be some sort of session that you think, wow, that's for so-and-so, like that's exactly what they need right now. And if there is someone like that, please do share this with them. You can share that link I just posted there, embodimentunlimited.com/hidden-trauma. And Mark mentioned as well, there's Ilan's shaking thing. So that's one of the modalities. There's a course on that goes on after this live event is finished. It's embodimentunlimited.com/trauma-is-your-superpower. And there's also stuff about superpowers and developing your superpowers around trauma. So whether you're someone who you've sort of healed now, like you don't need to go through that healing journey, but you've got something you actually want to turn into something like great, like you had to be super sensitive because there's lots of stuff going on in your life and now you heal the trauma with it and now you're just a really caring, kind, listening, sensitive person. That's your superpower you might develop. So that's what that superpower course is, the stuff around business or relationships or parenting and all these sorts of things in that. As I said, share it and just to look at what things are coming up as well. Nice to see people benefiting from this, really cool. Yeah, and being a spectrum is really nice as well. So just to share what's coming up next so that you can sort of see and plan accordingly. As I said as well, take breaks, take lots of breaks. There'll be replays. Replays will first be sent out tomorrow and then they'll be up until past the end of the event. I think it's the 21st or 22nd that they're up to. So you don't need to like stress out about that. They'll be emailed out to you. So don't worry about that. In terms of what's coming up next, we've got Patricia doing a live session, The Subtle Damage Emotional Abuse Leaves. We've also got Mark and Lund together on a recording. This one is really fun. If you're maybe not in the best place. I wouldn't recommend seeing it though, because there's a lot of fun, a lot of jokes, maybe some swearing, maybe some making fun of different things. So it's a really cool session. And there's obviously a heap coming up for the whole rest of this event too, whether you watch them live or watch the replays. There's culture stuff with video, weird things you don't recognise as trauma. We've got Ron back as well, looking at forgiveness. Obviously the Q&As each day, parenting stuff around marketing. Got some sessions in German as well if you need that. Sleep stuff. I believe everyone sleeps, so that might be beneficial as well. Nia's back as well, looking at persistent health issues. We've got Deb Dana, who is polyvagal theory, one of Stephen Porges' main people in that as well. So she'll be here tomorrow. And a ton more good stuff coming up. So we really hope that you guys do get a lot out of it, and that anyone you know gets a lot out of it if you share that link. So I'll say adios for now and let everyone have a bit of a break. We'll be back in about an hour and 20 minutes with Patricia. And until then, I hope you take care of yourselves, whether it's going for a walk or hanging out with some loved ones or just moving or whatever you need to do. Eat some food. I just ate eggs. They were tasty. I like eggs. So, thanks everyone. Creativity, that's a nice one, Vero, isn't it? And that looking at the barriers of doing trauma as well. So thanks for the shares, everyone. Really appreciate it. So thank you for that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making this happen. We really love it, and we really hope you've got something from it. So cheers all, and